everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Good Death Podcast, Ask a Death Doula. I always have to remind us why we're here. What is the intention? What is the purpose of this podcast? And all of you know it's to reduce the fear of death, to bring back death as the sacred, natural experience it was meant to be, and to empower people with the skills once again on how to care for their loved one. And there's a few beautiful ways that we're doing that. So I want you to understand the significance of this moment. A study by AARP found that 52 million caregivers are in the United States right at this moment, 52 million. And 70% of them say they are overwhelmed. So we want to help to bring back skills, to empower, to help with this natural stage of life. And also, here's the reality of it. It helps you heal grief, and it helps you understand the truth about how to fully live. It's a win across the board. And that's why, if you know me at all, my name's Suzanne O'Brien. This is my life's purpose. And I am going to do absolutely everything I can to create a space where everyone can meet in community and education and have this information. And I know this is how we change the world because I see it family by family by family. So I want to remind you that we have a Good Death Book Club experience. It's a 12-month death and dying course for free that is on right now. I'm going to teach you one topic each month. They stand alone. It's a $97 value. They stand alone. You can come to one, you can come to all of them. It is based on the Good Death book, but I give you extra teachings and lessons and create a community to ask questions. So the syllabus is available if you go to thegooddeathbook.com. I'm going to talk about the phases of end of life, medication at the end of life, disease-specific end of life guidance, how death is having a rebirth, how we keep death green with helping our choices, helping the planet. I'm also going to teach you about how to have a physical good death. I'm going to teach you how to have a mental good death. I'm going to teach you how to have an emotional good death, which may be the most important thing, or at least one of them. I'm going to teach you how to have a financial good death. Yes, there are doula giver pearls that I know. I've been honored and blessed to be with over 1,000 people at the end of life. I'm going to share with you everything I know that will change your life today, because how you change your life is changing your perspective. I'm going to teach you about a spiritual good death and also death as a sacred experience, as it was always revered as. So one of the ones that I love the most is the first one, where I talk about simply that we just forgot. As humanity as a whole, we just forgot that end of life is a natural part of the life cycle and not to be afraid. And by the way, used to be revered as a sacred one. And it's time to bring that back. So if you have not already joined the Good Death Book Club experience, you can do that with the link below. We are live every month. You do not want to miss it. Okay, today we are continuing on with the virtual Good Death Book Club tour, interviewing wonderful people in this space. And today we have a wonderful guest. She is Reena Lazar. She is a co-founder of Willow End of Life Planning. And I really love her background. You know, when I was doing research for our podcast, and I was like, wow, some of the things she's done, she is the example of being heart-led and passionate about what you do. She is a creative thinker, compassionate listener, and facilitator of peace on every level. Reena is fueled by her passion for personal growth and transformation. Committed to lifelong personal development, Reena has an eclectic background and education. She is a graduate of the Beyond Yonder Virtual School of Community Death Caring in Canada. Shout out to Canada. We love you, Canada. Where she studied with 10 different experts. Prior to co-founding Willow, she created and led award-winning, and this is really what got me, award-winning Piece It Together, which brought Palestinian, Israeli, and Canadian youth together for dialogue, filmmaking, and community engagement. You had me at hello. You have me at hello with that. She has a degree. We could go on. She has an eclectic background. She has a background in she went to McGill University and has a background and degree in architecture and a Bachelor of International Affairs from Columbia University. You're going to love the conversation. What I really want to highlight and emphasize is end of life planning. By 80 to 90%, in my experience, when we plan ahead for end of life, has led to the most beautiful end of lives by 80 to 90%. So is that the key? Planning ahead. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think that it is. So sit back, relax. This is the Good Death Podcast with our interview with Reena Lazar. Welcome, Reena. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you, Suzanne.
I feel like this was a long time coming, but always in divine timing, because I've seen your work and we've been talking kind of through social media and different things, and I just admire what you do. So it's going to be a great conversation. We're going to have a great conversation, but I was looking, and again, I just shared all of your background, which our listeners know now that is very diverse. So you have a beautiful, diverse background, which I love so many of the things that you've done. But I have to ask you, how did you find your way into end of life and all of a sudden finding yourself being an educator and being a change maker in this space?
Thank you for asking. Good question, especially if you look at what I've done before. I found my way kind of serendipitously. I, as you know, did this peace building work. And then when that was done and I got over the sort of burnt outness of all that, I was looking for a new venture and something for profit, something with a partner. And I was looking at who in my life do I know that I would love to work with. And I have a very good friend who turned out to be the co-founder, Michelle Pente, who was a few years prior to that, had told me about her new direction in life. She was studying to be a funeral director. And I thought, who does that, And then she explained to me, a lot about the greening of death stuff that she was involved with in some work she's doing, and also in the reclamation of death care in communities and families, and sort of the DIY movement of it all. And when you're sitting at a table and you're talking to someone and you're really interested and you're like leaning forward like that. Well, that was me. So I just remembered her and I thought, remembered what she's up to. And I approached her, hey, why don't we start a business? And we spent the next half a year to a year just before we started Willow, just getting together about once a week for maybe a half day or a day and just research like what's out there. And I'm going back to 2000 and like 14, 15. So what's out there in the world, who's doing what, researching, education, da, 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 da. And there wasn't a lot out there at that time, as you probably know. So we got excited about starting something. We weren't sure what. And then I did a training at the Beyond Yonder Virtual School of Community Death Caring, which was a Canadian-based program. That was fantastic. She now, Cassandra Yonder, is the one who ran it, and she now runs that huge Facebook group called Community Death Caring, I think. Anyway, I think the whole program ran for like 4 or 5 years. It was really great. There was a different instructor for each of many topics. And at the end of the day, at the end of that program, which could have trained me to be a death doula, really, what interested me the most was the education. I thought, wow, the stuff I just learned, everybody should know. Everybody should know this. And it, of course, as you well know, changed my relationship with death and dying. And then Michelle and I were like, yep, we got to do something about just community-based education. And that's how it began.
Well, I love that.
And my background in communications obviously fed into that.
Yeah, definitely. But, I'll say right now, education is the key, right?
Yes.
That is the change. So wherever you are, having the conversation about anything and educating correctly, the truth about it, and also for death specifically, just this fear that is associated with it. Where did that come from?
Yeah. Is that a rhetorical question or a real question?
Yeah, it's both. It's a little bit of both, but it's like that's what we're facing right now. But when we can have conversations with community about, wait a minute, it's really the last 100 years or so that we've removed everything that's natural and sacred and that we know about end of life. And when we bring that back, they're like, oh, wait, Oh, yeah. Wait, not only do I not need to be fearful of it, preparing for it changes much of 80 to 90% of my experience at the end, but also it makes us live. And this is really important. And you can comment on this, live each day with a different lens on, because I know what a gift it is. And I know that one day this is not going to be the same. And so I make my decisions about how I spend my time, purpose, connecting, showing up, everything every little day. And that makes me feel so connected and so
Absolutely.
good. Yeah.
You're speaking for Willow, basically. I mean, that is why we do what we do. One of the expressions we say is wake up before your time's up.
Yep. Yeah.
Like because,
Awaken.
yeah,
Awaken.
totally. I mean, because the other
Wow.
experience I had, although I didn't connect this directly, but looking back, obviously, is, like so many people, a brush with death. It was a very serious car accident where the car flipped. I was 16 years old.
Mm.
And no, fortunately, nobody was seriously hurt. Nice big American car. Thank you. And but the first thing I did when I got home, and I was 16, after we spent some time in the hospital, was write letters to my three best friends at the time and tell them how much I love them, what I hope for them in the future. Like I wrote a letter that I now talk to people about writing, and I had completely forgotten about this. And when I looked at what I wrote, it's like, that's exactly what my tool says to do. But
Yep.
as you know, like so many, having been at the bedside for so many, a lot of people have these wake up calls, either just before they're dying or when they have a brush with death. And I keep thinking, like, why wait? Why, like, we don't have to have that serious brush with death or a serious illness or be close to death to have the wake up call. So, how do I help people have the wake up call? That's really what All Willow is about. And so,
Oh, so good. All right, let's talk about this because I have been privileged to be with over 1,000 people at the end of life, all different cultures all around the world. And there was very similar things that I would see and that they would say. And so I'm a former hospice and oncology nurse, cancer nurse. And this is what confused me very early on in my journey is that there were times that patients would say that cancer was the best thing that happened to me. And I was like, what do they mean? How could they say that? And now I understand it's the awakening.
right.
And so what I have seen, and so then I want your comment on this and your opinion. We're holistic beings, right? So we're physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, all of us right now. At the end of life, sitting bedside, as people's physical bodies were diminishing, I would see their spiritual body growing. And there's one point in the journey that it seems that they have one foot in this world and one
Mm.
foot in the next. And they get what I call their spiritual eyes or spiritual wisdom, the aha, the awakening. And they go, I get it now. I know why all that happened. I understand. And it's like, wait a minute, you're getting all of the magic before you leave, which is a natural part of what's supposed to happen. But can we get the magic now? Can we see through that lens now? And I'm going to pose this to you because you've done the work that you've done with peace. Do you feel that the removal of death from our awareness, our knowledge in the world is removing one of the greatest teachers about how to live?
I just want to have to clarify removal of death. You mean what exactly?
Removal of death awareness, removal
Oh,
of death
awareness.
knowledge,
Okay.
of treating
Yeah.
like it's optional, not knowing anything about it, pushing it away, all the
Yeah.
wisdom that comes with it. Is that contributing to the chaos because we don't have the wisdom and knowledge and beauty about, what people say at the end of life? We're all connected, that
No,
everything,
yeah.
like, things that are life changing.
Yeah, I know I do. And the funny thing is, in fact, I think we're obsessed with death, but not our own deaths. We're obsessed with natural disasters and wars and car accidents and da da da. Like the news is obsessed with it. People love to watch that stuff. But when it comes to thinking about and contemplating our own mortality, that's where there's like a big wall. And
Well, yeah, so I see, and so I think again, this is important because I feel like there's only two energies, right? Fear or love, and those
exactly.
natural disasters, it's, I think it's fear, and people are just on edge all of the time at all of the things that are happening in our world, and also that are, amplified by certain things, and it doesn't do anyone any good. So let's go back to your education. So you built this beautiful company with a co-founder, which is wonderful. And so when did you start and what was the reaction? What was the reception when you
Hmm.
started it?
Started was it I always forget, 216, 215, 216. Let's say 216,
Mhm.
2016. the reaction, the way we started is, like most people start companies, we send the message out to everyone we know and ask them to send it out to the people they know. And we had these workshops that we did locally. The first one we did was called Love Letters and Heart Wills. Now we call that Legacy Love Letters and Heart Wills. And we had two groups, like a morning group and an evening group. And we met, once a week for 4 to 6 weeks or something. And we didn't know if people would want to pay for this. So we said, okay, and I'm saying this for the benefit of your listeners who are in this sort of business, because this little model, I think, is amazing and everyone should do it. We told people, pay what you wish at the end based on your perceived value. It's not pay what you can. It's like, do the work, come with us, trust us, and then at the end you can pay. And you know what? They paid pretty much what we would have charged, on average. Some people
I
paid
love
more,
it. I love it.
less. And so that was great. So obviously the payment showed us, yes, we really got value out of this. And of course, yes, they told us, that people just say that what you've probably heard a million times. Oh my goodness, like it's so good to talk about this. No one in my community in my life wants to talk about this with me. Thank you so much. I feel so much more, I feel more relieved. I feel more at ease. One of the guys, and there was a guy in our group.
There's always one or two.
Yeah, exactly. He had a terminal illness and he has since died. And it changed his whole end of life process. Like he thought he wanted to die alone in a cave, literally. That's what he said. And he ended up having the most gorgeous end of life ceremony that he designed.
This is so good. All right. So let me highlight a few things if I can. So the people from when I started working in end of life that had a good death, and again, there weren't many, but I was like, okay, what made that? What I'm trying to study, what were the elements, what made that family different? It wasn't the disease process. It was the energetic process. It was people that planned ahead, that they had some awareness that end of life would show up, and they had chosen, even though, plans don't always go as perfectly as we think, but they were aware of it and their families were aware of it. And so it wasn't a shock when it presented, and they had a roadmap to go by. And so 80 to 90% better when you plan ahead. And then people, and just like when you said with this gentleman, we just had a doula giver that was working with a gentleman with advanced stage liver disease dying. And when she shared all the choices that he had for life celebration and how end of life and how comfortable and who do you want there and what do you want, you would have thought he was planning like a retirement party or a 50th. He went from feeling like he had no control and choices to being so excited of all of these things that he had. So that's amazing, right?
I know. Yeah. And this guy actually said, I'm kind of excited to die now.
Well, we've had that too. People are like, I don't want to rush it, but you know what? You made it sound so beautiful. And it's like, great. And so that's a beautiful thing, because we want to turn something into empowerment, and choices are empowering, and you have choices. And so people, really need to know that they have so many choices that they have to make themselves, because they should be subjective. Now, the other part that I do want to impart and get your input on is our responsibility as individuals to make sure that we do certain things so that we're not leaving it for our families to have to clean up or deal with. And I do think it's all of our responsibilities. Plus, they might not know what we want or don't want, but also just the logistics of all of the mess and scavenger hunt if you don't have things relatively organized. What do you want to share about that?
Oh, I mean, besides making it so much easier for the family, when people do it, they feel they feel great. And because maybe it involved them going through things that they'd forgotten about. Maybe it involved them getting rid of things that they didn't need. Usually people just feel lighter, more relaxed, just
peace of mind. It's peace of mind.
We're doing it for them, but we're really doing it for us. Come on.
You know what has always, so there were 5 categories that I could identify working with people at the end of life that prevented them from having peace at the end of life. And when we pretend that death is optional, and when it shows up, which we know 100% of the time it will at some point, and things aren't organized the way you want, you don't have the energy now to do it. It really had them unsettled, and I can totally understand that. And so there is a real peace of mind. But let's talk about downsizing. Let's just go here for a minute, because if we're gonna do this, let's really do this. I feel like it's in France, but it's probably in multiple other countries, that at the age of 50, I'm told, you're supposed to start downsizing your things. And one of the things that I see in the United States, which is really heartbreaking, is that somebody has their end of life. And first of all, I don't know how we accumulate the amount of things. And I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm trying to make an observation, but myself included. And I think I call myself a minimalist. And my son would beg to differ a little bit, but I do still
Probably,
have a lot less than a lot of people. And I'm constantly trying to give away things. But they do say at the age of 50, you're supposed to start downsizing. And I think it's such a brilliant, wonderful thing. Because what I've seen when someone dies, first of all, if it's not planned and organized, even in, the basic planning, the layers of grief that's added to this, it doesn't allow the family to actually
yeah,
go through a really healthy grief and bereavement period because they have to deal with where are the keys? Where are the document? Where's this
right,
thing? I
right,
mean, they're running around.
right,
There's no wonder there's traumatic grief, but because they're overwhelmed, I have seen multiple families come in with big garbage bags and just because they can't go through everything, just pile stuff in and just throw it away. And nobody wants that, right? What do you want to share about that?
I'm just thinking of a personal story. When my parents died a little over 20 years ago, close together in time, before they died, like a few years, I don't know, 5 or 10 years before they died, they actually moved from our very large house, because we're six
Hmm.
kids in Montreal, to just a modest apartment in Vancouver. So they were forced to do a lot of downsizing.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because they had to decide, what are we taking and what are we leaving?
Hmm. Hmm.
So everything they had in their modest, like, two-bedroom apartment was stuff that really meant things to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
So whereas if we had to clean up that house back in Montreal, oh my God. So when it came to going through this apartment, everything was meaningful. Like, it wasn't a bit,
Hmm.
and they were pretty organized in terms of like where to find stuff. So I think there is a beauty in having the luxury to go through your loved one's stuff if it's not overwhelming. But it's when it's overwhelming that it becomes a nightmare.
Yeah, but most
Another,
right. And so
yeah,
again, this goes back to planning ahead, how
yeah.
critically important that is, because if you do that, then we have this option. If you don't do that, it's usually completely overwhelming with things and everything seems to get thrown out. But
And,
again,
and,
just
and, it, and it could be a full-time job for months, like months. I have this friend, there are three children of someone who died at almost just short shy of her 100th birthday, still living in the house they grew up in, and a very like well-known person, and her late husband was also well-known. They had stuff that was like really valuable, but they just piled and piled and piled and piled it up. It was months and months of her and her siblings full-time going to the house.
yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't pleasant most of the time.
Where's the grief process?
Yeah.
Where's the sitting in, Shiva for obviously the Jewish community, but like we should be having those same rituals or the availability to just be. Well, how am I today? What am I feeling? What's going on instead of having to do the task list that can get really heavy. I'm smiling because we kind of with my parents, they had a it's hard and I get how hard it is, but they had a large house with 3 levels and 2 people with all these things. And they downsized with a lot of encouragement. They did a downsizing and went through things, and it has made it for them easier, but also it's going to be, a much better situation for the 4 children. However, yeah, it's just, I know it's never an easy thing sometimes, but the energetic clarity sometimes that comes with downsizing for
Mhm.
them, just, when everything has an energetic charge. And so just
Totally.
having things tidied up and just more
Yeah.
organized this is kind of a message for all of us on here. I think
Yeah.
is a really great thing to do and to learn and to
Yeah.
consider doing yourself. That's
Yes.
just
And in terms of energetic charge, it's getting rid of the stuff that has a negative energy too,
well,
right?
there you go.
Yeah.
Right. So everything has an energetic charge. And I love that you shared that because, there's stuff you might not even be aware that's bringing heaviness into your household. And I just think clutter and a lot of things brings just a level of confusion. And make sure, have it the way you want, have colors in your house the way you want so that that's your sanctuary, right? That this is the space that you're creating. So everyone has the ability to do that. I want to talk, if we can, about your peace project that you did, because I was so moved by that when I read that. Can you tell me how you first started that, when you first started that? And then we can go into a little more detail.
Um, yeah, it's a bit of a heavy thing at the moment, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Um, so started it kind of in a similar fashion to Willow. Like I just had this idea. Well, again, I was like switching from one career, like I was ending sort of one career that wasn't really lighting me up. And I was thinking of, what do I want to do? Actually, it was sort of around 9/11 too, like, you're soul searching and everything. And I realized I really wanted to contribute to some peace building initiatives in the Middle East. And so I looked at volunteering there was these summer camps, like the most well-known one is called Seeds of Peace in Northeast US, Massachusetts, I think, somewhere around there. And they weren't taking volunteers. So someone I know, I had done this compassionate listening project. That was something that started to pique my interest. I went to Israel and Palestine with a group of people, mixed group, and we listened to people talking about the conflict. Like we listened to
Wow.
Israelis, we listened to Palestinians. This is 1999. It was things were just about to get kind of lousy, but nothing like it is now. So there was a tense time, and I was just so moved with this trip and I mean, it was really the first time in my life because I grew up Jewish. I even went to a Jewish school in Montreal, and I'd never really heard the Palestinian narrative, like from a Palestinian. I never really had Palestinian friends. I have so many now. But so I was listening to Palestinians, and I think for the first week of two, every single day I had like a big, big cry, and I don't cry easily. And I just got compassion. Like I got like to feel, hey, what did I get? I got that you don't have to agree with someone to feel compassion, but you absolutely have to feel compassion if you want to come to any sort of agreement. So
So what did you hear in those conversations that brought you to tears, but what was it?
two things brought me to tears. One is just the amount of suffering
Hmm.
that Palestinians were having at the time. Checkpoints were relatively new. Of course, they've been standards for a long time now. So every movement they had would have to be was humiliating, and as a
Hmm.
Jewish person, we have a history of being humiliated. And so to see that being done to them by, my people was really hard. And it was, I think it was also before the internet. So we couldn't easily see these stories.
Hmm.
And now. So I was,
Hmm.
I was seeing them with my own eyes. I was seeing people talk about their houses being demolished. So suffering for sure, on one hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
On
Yeah.
the other hand, the thing that brought tears to my eyes were the people who are actually working together across sides, like the Israelis and Palestinians who are working towards peace and building understanding and going through all the discomfort that they have to go through just to be able to be with each other's stories. That like
It's
totally
so
yeah,
beautiful.
beautiful. So when I got home, I thought, okay, oh, then I wanted to get into it more. So then I ended up volunteering at a camp in New Mexico called Creativity for Peace. It
Mhm.
was wonderful. I helped create some of the dialogue there and facilitated it. And it was with girls, teenage girls from both Israel and Palestine, including someone from Gaza who unfortunately was killed, not this time around. She was killed in 2014. Um, and
Mm.
then when I got back from that, I thought, okay, I've got to do this here in my neighborhood. And that's kind of what got me going. So,
I
and then,
mean, isn't,
yeah,
when we talk about education being the key, it's also the youth, right?
yeah,
So the youth are the future. And I feel like there's so much promise
yeah.
because we haven't done a good job.
I just want to say, this reminds me of the work I do now in a way, because it's about fear and it's about love, like everything, right? So when the youth would come here, we'd have them for the first night or two in a different home. So we'd always mix up like one Palestinian, one Israeli, and maybe if there was one Canadian that was needed a place to stay. And they always told me like how afraid they were to be like, sometimes they had to share a room. And it was so fascinating that let's see if I get this right. The Palestinians could not figure out why the Israelis would be afraid of them because, like, according to them, they have all the power. And so both of them were so afraid of
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And it was a shock to know how much fear each other had. And of course, over time, that when they got to know each other, like that fear just turned to love, like so much love.
And how does fear present itself, right? In so many negative, ugly, heavy ways, it's really fear at the bottom, which I
Yeah.
think is so important for us to understand that fear or love, right? And under fear can be all these things, hatred and all the things that go along. Take a breath and we got to get back to love because it is the only real truth, but it's there and everyone's got it, right? So I think that's just amazing that you did that.
And the sad part is that fear, I'm going to say this in a sort of crass way, is so much easier to market than love. Like what I mean by that, promote. Like it's
I,
so easy
I
to
know.
get people afraid. And we see it in the pharmaceutical industry, we see it in the
It's
death
everywhere,
industry, we see
everywhere.
it everywhere. Politics, of course, and duh. And but telling people the importance of love, like it's hard to because it's all about experiencing it when it comes to love. Like you just have to experience it.
Well, you know what's interesting that you say? So, I think we all do a lot of thinking about this, right? Especially in our world today. And it's almost designed where from the get-go that you are building up those fearful walls and building up those walls. And in order to feel that love and to be there, you have to dissolve some of those. So, um, you're being encouraged at every turn to be fearful. Have those walls up. You better have those walls up. You better get them before they get you because they're coming for you. And here's the image, and here's the image, and here's the and we're not even, oh, I mean, most of us are not even aware of how you're being targeted with fear at every turn. So for me, it's, hey, unplug, guys. Don't
Yeah.
even listen to it. Go out and sit with a tree, go take a walk, and get into your heart
Yeah.
connection, because we see this at end of life, right? So people, as the ego, which is the fearful, the separate part, if you don't know, about that, is dissolving. Their love, their wisdom, their true self is showing, and it's the most beautiful, magnificent thing. But we, in the active phase of the human being experience, have to know how to connect with that heart, strengthen that muscle, and it's really tuning out and tuning in. But
Tuning
boy,
in.
when you do.
Yeah. Tuning in, obviously, the one of the ones that everyone talks about is gratitude. Like, right, gratitude, gratitude. One
Mhm.
of the little tricks I have for tuning in is I create playlists that are only about love. Really, like I don't listen to music that's not uplifting. I only listen to uplifting. And you know what? If I'm not feeling great, I just put on my earbuds, go for a walk, and ta-da, I'm better. I'm back.
The fastest way to
Yeah.
connect to the alignment of being, right? And to is put on a song. I mean, just especially we all have the songs that we listen to like growing up and teenage, the form. They will bring you right there into that alignment and change your mood. It's vibrational, it does it. And people need to know that there's those tools as much as there's the other ones. And again, you're in control of how much you're allowing in. So if you're planted to the news and allowing all of that, and I get it, we need to know what's going on. But is that serving you? Or is it really just igniting your nervous system and keeping you in this fearful state, which, we can't show up in a proactive place if we're always there. And also it's just so unhealthy for your body. Um,
And
that,
and
yeah, yeah.
bring it back to the work I do in end of life, that is at the heart of Willow. Like our tools and our workshops and the workshop scripts that Willow educators use, it's all about heart-centered stuff. It is practical
Yeah.
as well. It's like getting stuff done, but always tuning into who and what matters most.
I think that you just said it. I think that the reason that this work is so life changing, and it's life changing, and people are like, oh, that's so depressing. How can you work in death and end of life? It's life affirming. It's the most life affirming. But because we're able to step into that bigger perspective of the human being experience, but also hear from people at the end of life what they're sharing, how they became awake, like, oh my gosh, forgiveness. I mean, everything. It's all of the universal laws on how to live in mastery in the most beautiful existence is in that
Yeah.
space. And we've removed it. So
Yeah.
to me, it's no wonder that everything is completely chaotic. Also, if we all knew that we were connected, like, would we be doing the things to each other, to the planet, to the animals? Yeah. So all of that. So let's talk about Willow a little bit. Where are you today? So in the evolution of Willow.
Oh, we're in a good place. We have the main thing we do is the Willow EOL Educator Program. So
Mhm.
that is in Canada we call it a licensing program, which is like the opposite of what it would mean in the US. It's basically a program
Right.
where you have the permission to use our intellectual
Got
property
it.
in your own communities with your own clients. And so there's a fee which gives you actually the material for life now. We changed it. It used to be like you had to keep paying, but now you get the material for life. There's an optional thing to keep paying if you want continued support, but that's optional. You can, once you pay your full fee, get it for life. You have access to the material for life. And at the heart of the material are these dozen or so heart-centered workshops,
Mhm.
detailed scripts, which are not meant to be used word for word at all. The scripts are there to help people.
Mhm.
And we now have videos that help people figure out, okay, now that I see the script, how do I make it my own? And we have a video to show you how you make it your own, or a few videos for that matter. And so that they can go into their community and do these workshops, whether it's for money, to make money just doing the workshops, or as a way to get known in their community as, say, a death doula, or as a celebrant, or as a funeral director, and just go out there and do these workshops. It could be for free, could be for fee. It's completely up to the
I
educator
love it.
with it.
The favorite thing is education and getting out in the community. Where do you suggest that people who want to do these, where would they go in their communities? Where's like the easiest place to go?
For some people, it's spiritual centers, churches, etc., churches, synagogues. For some people, it's just, hey, I'm connected with my local library. I'm going to do it there. I put up a poster. Often could be care homes, hospices, and particularly for the people who work at the hospice. So for staff, volunteers, and or families. So we have a number of hospices that do these on a regular basis for the community. It lets the community know about their work, who they are as a hospice, and it's beautiful community education. So those are some ideas. Funeral homes, another one. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll find whatever. I mean, we do them at the libraries and community centers and churches and all of the synagogues, whoever is open. I mean, but again, my whole thing is really focusing on community, taking care of community once again. Again, we talk about giving away our power. You don't need a certain person elected or a law to be passed to show up in compassion, to show up in how can I be of service, to share knowledge that as a practitioner that can absolutely change the trajectory of that person and their family's end of life because they have some knowledge. They've planned ahead. They know what document they need to do or whatever it is. There's just so much magic in this space.
They know what's important to them.
And
they've had meaningful conversations to people about what's important to them.
All of it.
It's one beautiful story. I love
and it's interesting you say that because, obviously my life completely changed the minute I stepped into working with those at the end of life. But it was, even just raising the children and saying that we're not always going to have an opportunity to have lunch with grandma and grandpa. Like if they were like, oh, I don't want to, I just reminded them that won't be an option. I'm not saying you have to. I just want you to be aware of the fragility of time and the experience. And boy, doesn't that just change the way we show up for one another? Everything is a gift. So I think you're wonderful. I think your work is wonderful. I encourage everyone to check out your website. How can they find you? How can they get more information?
Willow, EOL.com. So willowendoflife.com, but just willowEOL.com. There you'll find at least 5 free tools that you can download. We also have this workbook that has lots of amazing, juicy questions in it, 7 tools
Love it.
of life and death. And I think it's a really great compliment to your book, Suzanne. Like your book's amazing, and there's a lot of overlap, especially in the end parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
Maybe
compliment.
we should do something together with that. Maybe we can do a special something. I'm just thinking.
I love it.
Yeah, I think we can. And I just really want to say I absolutely adore Canada.
Oh, thank you.
I adore Canada. We have so many Canadian doula givers, and there's just a grounded softness. There's something that's just been so incredible. I cannot wait to come and do things in the country, but it's always been really special. And I love having, you on the podcast and spotlighting what you're doing. And I do think that, let's think about maybe complementing with the two. Maybe we can make a special offer that people can get both, because this is the change. Having the conversation, having the tools, and just opening up this space. And you've got, Reena, you're absolutely amazing. You've got lots of information here that can help you. And I'll tell you, it can change your life today. And a good death is a good life. So thank you so much for being here on the podcast. I cannot wait.
It's so great to connect again. And I hope we can do some more of this.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. This was the Good Death virtual bookcast. This is the book tour virtually. And again, we're bringing people on that are experts in this space. Reena is one of them. Check out her website. The link is below in the show notes, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody. There you have it, everyone. Another episode of the Good Death podcast and the Good Death virtual book tour, being in conversations with so many wonderful people, so many wonderful topics. This is how we change the world, getting back to community, taking care of community. A positive end of life is possible for every single person with the right education, kindness, and support. And the Good Death book and the Good Death Book Club experience, 12-month death and dying course that is free, is how we do that. So please join our book club experience. Share this with your platforms, with other people. Have your own book club. This is how we get together with education that is a human right. A good end of life is a human right. It should not be a privilege. And we are giving that free education and supportive community to be able to do that. I love you so very much. And thank you for being part of the Good Death podcast. We'll see you in the book club.